right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today is February 28th, 2026. We have a lot of exciting news that we're going to be talking about. I want to dive in and focus most of the attention on what's happening in Oregon, and more importantly, with the primary governor debate for the Republicans. I do think that we actually have a real chance to elect a Republican governor this cycle. People are pissed off and they're absolutely sick of the things going on with the Democrats, especially given into the House. There's nobody better that I want to bring into this that has had her boots on the ground. I want everybody to welcome to this podcast somebody who cuts through the BS and gets real about what's happening in Oregon and beyond. Today, we're diving deep into the fight for citizen empowerment, government transparency, detoxing the toxic politics that's been dragging our state down for decades. We've got a powerhouse guest today who's been exposing the waste, the narrative, in the ways every day that's impacting Oregonians and can make a real impact. Joining me is the Oregon citizen, a true trailblazer who's not afraid to call out the admin fat cats, skimming off the tax dollars, questioning campaign spins, rallying citizens to take back control of what Oregon is, with their finger on the pulse of everything from grant mismanagement to upcoming elections. She's the voice that we need right now, and I think it was very important that I bring her on. Cindy, the Oregon citizen, how are you? Welcome to the podcast, Noncompliant America.
Hey, what an introduction. Oh my gosh, that's wild. I've never had anybody introduce me, so.
Well, you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. And I'm so happy that you're here, and you told me that this was your first ever radio experience. So welcome to the radio waves. I'm absolutely glad that you were able to join me on here today.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm honored that you asked me.
A self-described Oregon citizen, you know?
Yeah. So
let me ask you this. We'll start out very simple. Starting from the beginning, for anybody that doesn't know your history, what's the one story or what's the first thing that comes to your mind that has got you fired up enough to start the Oregon Citizen? Initially it was Instagram, but now it's all over. What's the one thing that kind of sticks out that got you involved into getting into politics?
Yeah, well, I think so. I'm native-born Oregonian, born and raised in Oregon. And I think for many of us in the United States, maybe even all over the world, 2020 was a year that, people began questioning things.
Yeah.
Between COVID and then Oregon, we had like massive wildfires that fall. And I, by nature, was already on social media because of the work that I was doing before Oregon Citizen. I was just observing what was going on in our media at the time in Oregon, and then seeing what was happening on social media with my community, the people that I was interacting with. And I was like, there is a huge discrepancy between what the media is telling us about Oregon and what I know my neighbors and what my community is saying about their experience in Oregon. And I was like, there's something really wrong here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Go ahead.
And so there you are. You launched into building what I believe is one of the most successful influencers in the state of Oregon by far.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the greatest things that I like is just the fact that there's not a lot of BS. You don't play into the party politics, which I really appreciate.
No.
I feel like a lot of times in conversations that are going on with people, they fall into the PR campaign, whether it's advocating for the right or advocating for the left, and they're fighting with each other, which, as we've discussed off the air, it's the great game. It's the great separation, which is how these outside agencies and these outside organizations that, the World Health Organization, the UN, the World Bank, you can get into different countries like China and Israel and Britain, and all these big, powerful countries. That's how they take countries over, is they create that divide. And what I really like and appreciate about all the things that you do is you kind of cut through all that messaging and you keep it very focused on, hey guys, yes, this stuff sucks. It's hard. It's challenging, but I figured out a way. Here's how to get started. Right?
Yeah.
And kind of educating the population, because really we could talk about federal politics, and I talk about geopolitics a lot and national politics because it's interesting. It does apply to Oregon. A lot of people feel that Oregon's kind of a lost cause and everything else, but I feel, and I don't know if you feel this as well, but I feel right now there is just an insurgence happening, and it's not just Republicans. It's the non-affiliated voters. It's the independents, even the Democrats. They're starting to open up their minds and be like, wait a minute, this, go back. We did something wrong. This isn't working. We can't just keep throwing money at things. So I want to ask you, in a recent post, you highlighted how the state agencies keep massive chunks of funding for administration on grants, like a $500,000 example. How widespread do you think this is in Oregon? And what's the best way for citizens to track and challenge these types of costs if they were to discover them?
Yeah, so I discovered that really because I did an interview with a representative. So one of the things I'm a big believer in is the problem we have a lot of times is that the average citizen doesn't know how government works. They don't know how it functions. And all they do is get caught up in the narratives when it comes time to vote. So with Oregon Citizen, my passion has been to research, get people in front of microphones who can really tell us how government functions. My mantra is detoxing from politics and engaging in government. There is government, like it's a function, right? Mm-hmm. It's the politics that is screwing us up. It's the narratives and the politics that is either people have become apathetic and want to not be involved and disconnect from it, or they're rabid in selling their political view, if that makes sense. So this legislator I recently interviewed, he was talking about how his name is Representative Osborne. He's a local legislator here in Oregon. He sits on committees. I believe he said this is his third or fourth session that he's been involved with. And he said it is a common thing where, for example, if they pass a law where they're going to fund something, like they're going to fund fixing up the fairgrounds all over the state, and all of the counties are going to get a piece of that money. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that he said, so that would be like a $10 million grant. And he said, when they came to talk to the committees, they said, yeah, we want to do a $10 million grant and all of this. And then he said, so how much is it going to do to add? How much is it going to cost in admin? Because when they do a grant, I used to do grants, so I'm somewhat familiar with this, is what they do is they put out an RFP, request for proposal. So there's like a specific thing that this money is going to go to. People in the counties can then request for some of that money. But that process has to be managed, okay, by an individual at the state government level. And so Representative Osborne said, how much of this $10 million is going to go to the state agency? And they told him $500,000.
Wow. That's incredible. And so that's a feature that's just to manage one grant. And people can find this information, this interview that's featured on your website. It's on X, which is primarily
it's on my X space.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Primarily what I use is X, and you are at Oregon Citizen _.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, at Oregon Citizen _ You guys can check her out. She does phenomenal work. So while you were interviewing Mr. Osborne yesterday, and you're talking about funding flows, what was one of the most eye-opening examples of the government waste uncovered? Was it the $500,000? Was that the main focus? And
Mhm.
and
Oh,
on
go ahead.
top
I'm
and
sorry.
on top of that, how can everyday people get involved on exposing these types of things?
That's an excellent question. There's so many layers of this.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I've been doing Oregon Citizen for 3 years now. It started on Instagram, and like you said, it's on Facebook and X now. And there's ways that people can get involved. And in this particular interview, that was the most shocking thing that I was shocked and that I didn't know about. And even Representative Osborne, I asked him, how do we find out about this? He says, you have to dig. So it would be a matter of somebody dedicating their time to getting the public records requests of this information, which anybody can do, but it takes time and sometimes it takes money, because you could put in a public records request and they can come back and say, well, it's going to cost this much money because we have to pay people to dig this information up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
really,
that's another thing.
And really, depending on what it is, it's kind of a blockade that they have to do that. But I feel like your page has been very successful in organizing a lot of these people that are the same way. I mean, you're relatively new in regards to the space and the public space on doing this, but just look like somebody, it demonstrates the importance of citizen journalism and the ability to just point and shoot and tell people what you see, tell people what you discover, spend a little time on investigating, go to some of these meetings and see how the game is played, see what kind of egregious situations are unfolding. Similar to, you've been down at the Capitol for the past week or two, engaging with the legislation and kind of seeing what's going on. What do you see that's currently happening with the legislators that you've been engaging with? Do you feel like they are gung-ho about passing bills like 1599 and 1598 and shoving all this stuff down their throat, or do you feel like they're kind of just like they don't really want to do it either? What's the overall sentiment?
That's an interesting question, because oh gosh, I could talk about this for a long time, because even Representative Osborne mentioned this in the interview that I did with him last night, that Oregon has a super majority of Democrats. So generally, when you go to my pages, you will see that I don't talk about Democrats and Republicans, and that's on purpose. I focus on policy and issues. But the truth is that we have a super majority in Oregon in our House and in our Senate. And so, for example, there might be a bill that may not be a good bill. It may not even be good for Democrats to support it. Okay. But what happens behind the scenes is what Representative Osborne calls it, is the arm twisting that will go on behind the scenes to get representatives to vote in a certain way, even though the public doesn't want it. We saw that happen with HB 4145. It's a bill. I can't run down all of the things about it because it's not my wheelhouse, but it's a gun bill, okay, which would put more restrictions on gun owners, okay? And there has been a cadre of citizens who have been very, very involved in trying to keep that from progressing in the legislature, getting out of committees. And for example, this is a perfect example. This got caught. A committee was going to be hearing the bill and the amendment. So what happens is it starts out as a legislative concept. It gets assigned to a committee. It becomes a bill. It gets assigned to a committee. The committee hears about the bill, and then they vote on that bill and decide whether it needs to go to another committee or if it can go to the floor.
That's fascinating. Cindy, hold on 1 second. We got to jump on the other side. We got Oregon Citizen on the radio right now breaking down how the system works and where all the corruption's hiding in Oregon, and we can take it back. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, folks. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. Thank you very much for joining me today. We have Cindy from the Oregon Citizen, online influencer, activist, informist, just an overall great person that is accurately representing the people's will of Oregon. And we have her breaking down and actually premiering for the very first time on the radio here on this show to amplify the message and amplify the sentiment that's going on in Oregon. And as I said before, we have a real opportunity to take this country or take this state back out of the hands of these Democrats. And even the Democrats are scared right now because of the tax referendum that's happening and the charge that's happening. People are realizing this is the most exciting thing. There's no reason to be blackpilled. There's no reason to be upset or disoriented. You guys, we have an opportunity that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now to where if we all just tie our shoelaces and walk out that door and get involved and get engaged, we can bring this state red. It's very exciting. But Cindy, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were talking about a couple things. Go ahead and continue on of the processes that you were seeing and some of the things that you saw within the legislative body.
So there's this bill, as I was saying, HB 4145, and they were following it. And there's this gentleman, his name's Derek LeBlanc, and he's the one who was really following this bill closely because he's a gun rights advocate. And so I don't know if that's the right word, but he's an advocate for protecting 2A rights. How's that? Right. And he had been following it. He was at the committee that day. He said he went to the committee meeting. He knew that he had enough people convinced on that committee that they were going to vote no and kill the bill. He knew it going into that committee meeting. And one of the people he lost. So what happened was they called the roll in the meeting to do the vote. So they started going down the vote, and one of the people that he knew that was going to vote no, voted no. They stopped the chairman, his name is Representative Kropp, stopped the meeting, literally stopped the meeting. He asked the representative who had voted no to come outside the room, had a conversation with her. It was like a 10-minute conversation. They left the committee meeting. They come back into the committee meeting, and then Representative Kropp says, okay, he re-gavels and restarts the vote completely over. And I watched it. I actually streamed it the next day because I wanted everybody in Oregon to see it. And then he says, okay, well, we're going to re-vote. He re-gavels. And so he starts naming off the representatives. He gets down to the representative that had voted no and that he had taken outside. He goes, okay, Representative Tran, what's your vote? And she goes, didn't we already vote on this? She looked very upset. And Derek was actually in the room. He said she was visibly upset and shaken when she came back into the room. And he goes, well, Representative Tran, we need your vote. She goes, I thought I already voted on this. He goes, Representative Tran, what is your vote? And she goes, oh, I vote yes. I vote yes. And so literally It was in real time. And this is what needs to happen is that the people of Oregon, when we engage in what's going on there, we can then put pressure on the legislature and say, we see you. We see what you are doing. And Derek actually filed, I believe it was called a Rule 27 with the Legislative Equity Office saying that she had been harassed. Yes.
And that was last week?
And yes, this last week that happened. And I streamed it on X and Facebook so people could see it in real time. What happened.
So we probably haven't seen what has come from that complaint yet. And that would be interesting for us to follow up on that and see how they're going to engage with that. That is a prime example of some of the nonsense that goes on. And it's crazy that he was able to see it. But it's good that we're able to get this story out there. We need to get it in the forefront. We need to expose this so people understand, hey, listen, your days are numbered. All of you guys, all of your days are numbered. The population is not asleep anymore.
Right?
We're not asleep.
We see what's going on behind the walls of the Capitol. And that's why I started Oregon Citizen, was because I was realizing we had checked out as a citizenry from being engaged in what's going on in Salem. And I began to realize that the policy in Oregon is what's harming us. It's not federal policies. It's not Trump. What's hurting our state is the stuff that's being created in Salem, you know? And so that is what I do. And what I've been doing, we have had wins. We have had wins in the last 2 years because of engaging citizens in this state like never before.
Yeah, and it's really great to see. It's really exciting. Honestly, folks, I think that we truly do have a chance. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about this Oregon Voice debate that you've graciously decided to be a part of. I want to talk about the excitement that's around that and kind of the premise of what being an Oregon Voice debate.
Like you said, opening it up for people to actually submit questions. That's awesome. And then having all of these great candidates on stage at the same time, I think is a really unique situation for Oregon to be able to view how these candidates interact with each other, how they interact with the audience, how they respond. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the goal for this is not for the donors, it's for Oregonians. It's for the Oregon people. And so we're asking if you guys or anybody listening, any local influencers or anybody with a heavy reach that wants to pick up the stream and rebroadcast it, we are offering it to you. It's free to air. There's no hooks. There's no tricks. There's nothing. The goal is maximum exposure. And what that's going to lead into, we're hoping, is we're going to build enough momentum around the Republican Party to where we'll have a huge advantage going into the general election. So with that, Cindy, we gotta jump one more break here on the other side. Thank you guys very much. You're listening and tuning in with Oregon Citizen, at Oregon Citizen on all the social media platforms. Cindy, she's a wealth of knowledge. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, folks. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. We have Oregon Citizen with us for one more segment. And so, Cindy, looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, how do you see the citizen movement evolving in Oregon, especially with issues like crime, homelessness, voter integrity on the table? How do you see things rolling out over in the next couple years?
God, that's a really good question. That's a really big question. What I see right now, like I said, I've been doing this for 3 years now, and because it's gotten so bad in Oregon, I'm seeing more and more people rising up and getting involved in their school boards, getting involved with their city councils, testifying at city council meetings, going to their county commissioners and testifying and getting involved. There's so many ways to be engaged with government.
And let me segue that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you have a website that people can go to, and where do people go to find this information? Because you actually provide a lot of the tools and these types of things for people to be able to get engaged and get involved. Is that correct?
Well, my focus has been the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I have to kind of focus on one thing, but yes, when legislature is in session, I am paying attention. I'm all over it. I'm following the bills. I'm in Salem. I actually put on my website ways for people to testify. I actually tell them how to testify, how they can submit online testimony, how much time they have for that. As far as city council, school boards, all of that, I honestly, if I had a team of people, I could follow all of that, but I can't, but I do direct people. So if they live in a specific county, I will tell them, hey, if you live in, let's say, Clackamas County, go to the Clackamas County website, sign up to get their email alerts, because oftentimes they have citizen boards that you can volunteer for, be a part of, get engaged with. Definitely. I usually try to point people in those directions if I don't have that information, because, like I said, I'm one person, so I have a limited capacity. But yeah, I do my best at pointing people in the right direction.
And so maybe the future would be a bigger infrastructure and ability for you to be able to be a more in-depth resource beyond the legislator of doing that. Mm-hmm. And, I know we've been talking about some things as well. Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is the tax bill, right? And the gripes that you've been having with Tina Kotek. And you've been very vocal about opposing rush tax hikes under Tina Kotek is her real name.
Oh my gosh, so many people call her Kotek.
It's only fitting, right? It's only fitting. So what do you see besides that? I mean, what do you see like the biggest threats to the Oregon economy right now, and how conservatives or independents, how can we push back? How can we get more involved? And what kind of things should we all be doing in this election cycle to assure that Tina Kotek doesn't make it to 2027?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, let me talk a couple of bit about the bill. So there's a bill, SB 1507. Literally, so the dirt on that bill is that it disconnects Oregon businesses from some of the federal tax breaks that they will get, okay, under HR 1, which is insane, because Oregon has dropped. Many people may not know that, but from 2019 to now, Oregon used to be the 11th in the nation for business competitiveness, meaning businesses wanted to relocate to Oregon, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted to bring business to Oregon. Now we're 35th in the nation in business competitiveness. Why? Because of high taxes. And so going into this short session, there were rumors that they were going to disconnect Oregon businesses from the federal tax code breaks that they deserve that came with HR 1. Well, and I find this information out because the legislators will share information with me. Mm-hmm. Things that they're hearing that could become bills, they share with me, which I'm very grateful for. And so that bill in particular, interestingly enough, 1 week before the legislative session started, an article came out by OPB, and the union, SEIU, basically said in that article, under their nonprofit called Our Oregon, they said they were harassing and smearing Democrats to pressure them into making sure that they disconnected Oregon businesses from the federal tax breaks.
Wow. So you've highlighted...
yes.
Yeah, you've highlighted on your page as well, Kotek's heavy support from the unions like SEIU.
Oh,
AFSCME, Electrical Workers Union, including big donations that have been given in upwards of $100,000, and how PAC money flows around from other candidates to her. How do you see this influencing her policies, especially on taxes and spending. And what does that mean for everyday Oregons who feel squeezed by these rising costs?
Yeah, it means that we need to vote those people out.
Yeah.
We need to get them out of office. And with SB 1507 already, with the Oregon Freedom Coalition and Representative Diehl, who has been instrumental in our state in pushing back against new taxes, he's already said that SB 1507, which it did pass in the House, he said in his floor speech, if this passes today, we will take a referendum to the people.
Yeah, we did it once, we can do it again.
Yes, and in the last referendum was the no gas tax referendum, which the people did that. We got over 250,000 signatures in less than 30 days. And that is a record with no paid signature gatherers.
Wow.
Every single person was paid. So there is massive momentum right now for citizen engagement and people to push back on higher taxes. They are not listening to the people. And what I'm hoping is that results in changed seats come November.
And we have to do that. So have you been following much about the Judicial Watch lawsuit that's been going on in Oregon and how they've been mandated to clean out the voter rolls in upwards of about 800,000?
Yes.
I know there's only been about 150,000 so far. How do you know much about that process on should we see that 800,000 be out of the voter rolls by this coming November?
I couldn't say. I don't know. I'm not very close to that topic. I know Stephen Jonkis, I believe, was working on that lawsuit. Are you familiar with who he is?
Yes, I know who he is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I believe I don't know him personally, but I do know that he's one of the lawyers on that lawsuit. So I'm not sure. Okay. It is possible that could be cleaned up, but I couldn't say for sure.
Okay. And also, you've also pointed out that Kotek's long tenure speaker since 2013, now governor, has contributed to Oregon relying on half federal funds, growing state dependency. How do you think this
100%.
How do you think this is played out with homelessness, crime, services, and what would the real detox look like from things like this if they were to actually lose the funding, which Trump is stating that they're not getting their funding and they're not getting reimbursed? What do you think is going to happen? Don't you think that only exercises the fact that they're trying to push more taxes on us to try to absorb the funding teat they've been on from the federal government for a long time?
Yeah, it's possible. The ironic thing is they don't really say that. So, for example, this whole ODOT debacle that's been going on since last year, as far as, we need to fund ODOT, make sure that we have people out plowing the roads and blah, 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 right? That started in 2025. They should have funded ODOT bipartisanly, but they didn't. And the people came out and they defeated because they tried to add 12 different taxes onto us in the 2025 session. But we, the people, rose up and told them no. Then she tried to call a special session, and it was going to happen over Labor Day. She said, we need a special session to fund ODOT, or we're going to have to lay off workers, right? Mm-hmm. She's had all these threats about laying off workers. So they did a special session, and that session produced a crappy bill, and that's why we did the no gas tax referendum, okay, to combat what she passed in that bill. And now, guess what she's saying, okay? And coming into this session, she was saying we're going to have to lay off ODOT workers if we don't have a solution. And now that's why we need to move the referendum. So when people signed that referendum, they understood it was going to be on the November ballot. The Secretary of State said it was going to be on the November ballot. Then the legislature decided with SB 1599, a bill that they created, they were going to put it on the May ballot.
Wow.
They stated they needed it on the May ballot.
That's incredible.
And the only reason why they wanted to do that is because of political reasons. They didn't want that on the ballot in
Cindy,
the general election.
Right there. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right, last segment. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. Make sure to follow Cindy at Oregon Citizen on all the social media platforms. You can follow me on X at NoncompliantAF. And one more thing I just want to reiterate is this Oregon Voice debate is being hosted by yours truly. And there's no outside entities, no outside sources. We get a lot of support from KSLM here, 104.3, 1220 AM. And all these influencers that are jumping on board. It's going to be a debate for the people, and we're really excited about it. We're really excited to have Cindy on board with that. Cindy, final thoughts. What is your trajectory for the 2026 election? And then where do we go after we can restore the people's house, the governor's house, and get a Republican in office? What are we doing after that?
I hope we're cleaning house, man. Well, I'm really hopeful that we can get a Republican in office because everybody's burnt on Tina. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, as I was saying before we went to the break, just crying about how we need money for ODOT because we're going to have to lay off workers. Well, guess what he said just recently? I'm not laying off any ODOT workers. As of February 24th, after all this drama that we've been putting up with for over a year, he says, I'm not laying off ODOT workers. So what is it, Governor Kotek?
Right.
So people are just done. We're done with the shenanigans. We're done with the shell games. We're done with the garbage. And I really believe even Democrats, I hear this on a regular basis from people who are Democrats. They're done. They're done. They know that Oregon needs change.
Beautifully put. I absolutely agree. I see it everywhere. The sentiment's everywhere. The reality is, I believe, is that we've been done for a long time, but we've just been sewn up by the bureaucracy on actually listening to these mainstream narratives and these talking points that the opposition always is telling us. We're actually believing it, and we're like, oh, okay, cool, right. Which now they're like, no. You want to fight, you better believe you got one. We are absolutely going to fight like hell in making sure that every vote counts, every vote is legal. We want I want to get rid of the mail-in voting. I want to get rid of all the corruption that's associated with that. And I think that if we can do that, and if we as Oregonians can push hard enough in that direction, then we absolutely... There's no reason why we shouldn't have a Republican governor. And it's not like you said, it's not just about Republicans. The fact of the matter is,
it's not.
The Republicans right now are the most sane, fiscally responsible, more transparent. I wouldn't say abstractly more, but just they are definitely more transparent and better for the country as far as everyday working families and individuals out there just trying to make a living and just trying to survive and just trying to have a weekend off every once in a while. I know so many people now that are working two jobs and they just can't get ahead. They just cannot continue. Now, granted, there's sacrifices we can all make, and I encourage all of you, if you guys are in that spot, there's subscriptions we can cancel. There's eating out. There's so many things that you just have to sacrifice right now, but understand that sacrifice isn't forever. And so it's important that you guys kind of go through that, and if you got some extra money floating on the side, buy some silver right now, because a lot of things are going on. There's a lot of uncertainty with the development of AI, the potential war in Iran that might even be kicking off this weekend. I mean, I know you don't get into too much of this stuff, but there's just a lot of volatility with things that we don't know. But the best thing that I like are success stories like you, and seeing where you came from, how you just decided one day, hey, I'm just going to start shooting videos and tell people how I feel. Hey, I'm just going to go down to the courthouse and I'm just going to see what's going on. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to start talking to these people. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I just think that is the key and that is the ticket. I'm not kidding. But that's the ticket, because realize and recognize also all of these people making these decisions, most of them actually aren't writing the bills. There's outside groups outside of the state, big corporations and conglomerates and everything else that are writing things for an agenda, and they are just the paper pusher. They are the face of this tyranny that's trying to uncloak right now and capture this entire state. But realize they are just people too. And I guarantee you, if 1,000 people went down there every single week and just made their presence known and was just around hanging out, being like, what do you got going on there, Merv? You know, and what's going on? Why are you guys doing that? And how do you, just please explain to me the logic on how you think disarming Americans and disarming Oregons and making it extremely difficult for them to protect themselves when the research says otherwise. The Second Amendment's there for a reason. It's a God-given right. It was given to us. Please explain to me how this is going to make anybody safe with any type of real data or real anything. And the fact is they don't. And some of them still do have a conscience. And they will talk to you. They will engage with you on both sides. I've had conversations with people on the other side of the aisle a lot. And we disagree on some fundamental things, but we do agree. And interestingly enough, the main thing that we agree on is the fact that the Democrats are absolutely terrified right now with the storm that's coming, because they aren't even popular amongst their own constituents. Nobody's liking these bills. Nobody's falling in line with these things. They are simply don't want to create political suicide. They can't be a dissenting voice within the party because it'll break ranks. It's very fragile. One thing that I know is that most Republicans, most of them, not all of them, most of them are pretty battle hardened, right? Because they have to take a lot of flack. They've had to walk through the flames to get to where they're at. Whereas the Democrats, they just can't break rank. So they just have to kind of do what they're told and just take the little pieces as they fall out, and that's their little payments for what they're doing. But if they break rank, they're so fragile. Their system and infrastructure is so fragile. Look at what's happening in Minnesota, which I think is also going to be an extension of all the states all over the country. But I do think Oregon has a Minnesota problem. Have you dug into anything aside from the $500,000 that you discovered and some of these things?
Actually, there's a guy that I had on as a guest. His name is Jeff Myers. He has dug into some programs in Oregon, one called Preschool for All and the Oregon Preschool Promise. And he has been doing that since 2022. He actually has unveiled fraud, absolute fraud in our state regarding state dollars.
Wow.
And he has reported it. He came on my X space and talked about it. He has reported it. He's reported it to all the proper authorities in Oregon, and he just keeps getting it ignored.
We got to get you back on for another show, another time. And I want to dig into this because I do absolutely agree with you. And I think that you're right. And again, it comes down to the same point of if we can cut back all this frivolous spending, suddenly the state won't need more taxes. They only need more taxes because there's more fraud. But the preschool promise, I just looked this up. The preschool promise program is a high quality, publicly funded preschool program that serves all children ages 3, 4, and families living below the 200% of the federal poverty level. Okay. Cindy, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Oregon Citizen, Instagram, Oregon Citizen, on X at Oregon Citizen, and I have a website, OregonCitizen.com.
Excellent.
There
Thanks,
you go.
Cindy. Have a great day.
Thank you.